Doomslayer. You know how like everyone tries to say that Doomslayer is this like almighty beast who slays the demons of hell? Well, the reality is, Christ did that for us. So we didn't really need Doomslayer to do shit. Like in reality, the Holy Diver went down there, cleansed hell or whatever, like whatever happened, and that's the reality. Is that everything like Doom Guy has done over the years on Mars, on Earth, like whatever, all of it has been completely pointless, and that is the reality of what we're seeing now with the complete and abject failure of Doom: The Dark Ages on Steam. 1,200 players right now. Bethesda had a good golden opportunity, like release this game on Switch 2, make it a launch day game, make it a big major like first party release, like have some major success story, like Fantasy Life 2 or Cyberpunk 2077 or Street Fighter 6. No, they seriously thought that it would be a good idea to release Doom: The Dark Ages just before the Switch 2 launched. And what happens? The game flopped. It failed. The hardcore Doom fanboys that have spent like the past several years hyping up at Doom Eternal as being one of the greatest games of all time, the Bible for gamers, that has completely and totally imploded upon itself. Nobody wants to see this. Nobody was happy with like the tone or the direction or like the end product. Like Dark Ages was doomed to be disappointing from the moment we saw the premise. The fact that it was a prequel. Bethesda themselves genuinely thought that the Dark Age, like Doom Eternal, was so great, its story so spectacular and badass that they couldn't follow up on it. So instead, they made up some bullshit like alternate history where like Doom Guy was like a knight or something. I don't know what the plot is actually. But like again, like the Dark Ages was something that like no actual Doom fan was like excited for at all. Like this was clearly just like Bethesda, id Software's attempt at like making the brand their own, because this is an IP that's been milk dry. Like the series was old and outdated before like the original Doom even stopped updating. Like there's nothing more you can do with the idea. It's time to retire it. And instead of doing that, they knew they had to like keep milking it, and so they made up some insane bullshit like thing about how I don't know, like Doom Guys like like, oh, it's a prequel in the past, the Dark Ages. This is when demons were at their most powerful or whatever. It has like it's trying to do something a little bit different, and I do kind of commend them for the effort. But like the reality is, unlike something like Donkey Kong Bonanza, where like the changes make sense, it's interesting, it's exciting to fans. Like everything about this was off-putting from the trailer, and the thing about that is like longtime Doom fans were quick to point this out, but Eternal fans were like very adamant that this game was going to be something spectacular, that this would be like a Game of the Year contender, that this would be like a huge major like phenomenon. One of the shining examples of why PC gaming is superior, even though this game also came out on PlayStation and Xbox. So, like, it was supposed to be this big, major deal, and there's just no getting around it. The game has been a complete failure. Like, nobody's talking about it, nobody remembers it, nobody's playing it. Like, Doom fans, like, popped this sucker in day one, and came away like extremely disappointed. At the absolute best, people are saying it's not as good as Doom Eternal. And like the reality is, people like me were pretty upfront in saying that like Doom Eternal wasn't very good to begin with. So all that's happened is that like the hardcore Doom Eternal fanboys are now like acknowledging the reality of their like tepid situation. That they hyped up Doom Eternal so much that they gave it like a reputation that it did not deserve, that nothing they possibly could have done would ever have lived up to that hype. The reality is, like, Doom Eternal was not a good game. Like 2016 was not a good revival. It did not do a good job like growing or expanding the lore. There's a lot of weird contradictions between 2016 and and Eternal, by the way, that people love to not talk about. There's all these issues with like the game playing completely differently and like not feeling the exact same and not like feeling like a real evolution. It's really odd because it feels kind of rehashy and like different in a bad way at the same time. If that makes any sense. Like Doom is just it's a really textbook example of what typically happens with these like third party reboot trilogies that come out. Because we saw the same thing happen with Dead Space. When it happened to Mass Effect, because like back in the day, those games were like worshipped as like shining examples of like gamer culture. But in reality, over time, the game started like becoming less and less popular to the point where the very final like credit screens of the last game, everybody agreed that like the game became shit at some point. Now, it's not that the game itself is shit. It's because like the entire series was garbage to begin with. The games were never good. And that's what we're seeing with the Dark Ages. We're seeing people begin to realize the reality, the grim reality, darker than the Dark Age, that Doom was never a good IP. Not on the PC, not on Nintendo 64, not on like not with Doom 3 or with like 2016 or Eternal, definitely not the Dark Ages. Like Doom was always an IP carried by its ill-gotten reputation as being some like hardcore like Satanist like edgy thing. Like that's the reality behind Doom, is that it really was the Grand Theft Auto of its time, and that like it was only popular because it had blood in it. Like it doesn't really have any redeeming qualities outside of that. Like nobody really cares about Doom as a video game. They care about the idea of Doom. The idea that they're playing this edgy, hardcore first-person shooters, like completely not understanding the fact that better games out there existed on Nintendo consoles. It's kind of shocking, seeing just how much like something like say Star Fox 64 has endured the test of time far better than Doom ever has or will. Like you're seeing like shmups are like so much better than Doom, so much more hardcore, so much more iconic and memorable. Like Doom is just it's a very good example of what's wrong with Western video game sensibilities, where like nobody actually cares about the game. All anybody cares about is just like looking cool and playing something with like edgy aesthetics and like something that will like annoy their parents. It's like the male equivalent of like dating a bad boy that your parents are gonna hate, right? Well, your parents, but like a teenage girl's parents would hate. Like it's that mindset. Like it's doing something you're not supposed to do with no regard whether like you actually want to do it. And that's like the dirty little secret about like pretty much all like Western video game development. Like they have no like redeeming qualities in and of themselves. They are entirely reliant over like catering to like Western preferences who don't take the time to understand like that there are better options out there. Like we prefer Mortal Kombat over the far superior Street Fighter games. Like that's another example. Mortal Kombat is very shallow in comparison. As an actual game. But good luck getting normies to understand that, right? Until recently, I didn't understand that. But it does need to be like emphasized more just how something like Doom, that which we've been told is some like iconic video game franchise from the Western world, how it's not really that big of a deal. Doom was not that hugely successful. It's not that popular. Like I think the first one sold like 3 million units or something. Far outstripped by GoldenEye, which is a far more successful, better made game from a more relevant developer. Doom is like the textbook example of just how gaming journos like prop up like nothing burger Western IPs to try and downplay like the superior Japanese ones. We see this with Ultima and Dragon Quest all the time. We see this with like we saw this last year with like so many of them coming out like hyping up Astrobot. We saw this with like The Last of Us and like all that slop. There are endless examples of that stuff, but people do need to understand like the grim reality that Doom is no different. Doom, in a lot of ways, is The Last of Us Part 2 of its time.